The war against TeslaQ and haters has now gone through the roof. Today, longtime Tesla hater Lora Kolodny of CNBC published a story that Elon Musk told NVIDIA to redirect thousands of AI chips from Tesla to X and XAI instead. As we get closer and closer to the June 13th shareholder meeting, we'll be seeing more and more of these kinds of false news. Lora says that emails from NVIDIA show that Elon prioritized shipments to X and XAI ahead of Tesla. But actually, Tesla had no longer been compute constrained well before these so-called emails. There are a number of other possible reasons that doesn't really impact Tesla, perhaps smoothing out margin impact, and the fact that Tesla would love to show both the vehicles and Optimus robot to have a powerful voice assistant. The most likely possibility, Tesla's ordering 100,000 of the next generation H200s instead. So after we finished this recording, Elon Musk actually responded to the CNBC article. First, he called Lora a liar, and then he clarified that Tesla had no place to send the NVIDIA chips to turn them on, so they would have just sat in a warehouse. The south extension of Giga Texas is almost complete. This will house 50,000 H100s for FSC training. And he clarified also that of the roughly $10 billion in AI-related expenditures, I said Tesla would make this year, about half is internal, primarily the Tesla-designed AI inference computer and sensors present in all of our cars, plus Dojo. For building the AI training superclusters, the NVIDIA hardware is about 2/3 of the cost. So his best guess is NVIDIA. He purchased about $3 to $4 billion this year. Great clarification by Elon. We'll take a look at all the different possibilities, and one of the perfect people to have this conversation with is Hans Nelson. He's really up to date with NVIDIA and the chips and the requirements for Tesla and what Elon's trying to do. Thank you so much, Hans.
Thanks for having me, Herbert.
Hans has his own YouTube channel. You should check him out. It's amazing. He's grown it quite well with all the great interviews. Check him out at Hans C. Nelson at YouTube. So let's take a look at this news here. So this is the article. Let's go through it first. Elon Musk ordered NVIDIA to ship thousands of AI chips reserved for Tesla to X and XAI. This is by Lora Kolodny. She's very well known, many years. Every time she has some sort of story, it's her goal to really tear down Tesla. She's a big TeslaQ or somebody who just absolutely does not like Tesla and always positions that way. So her key points, emails circulated, which was obtained by her, show that Elon Musk told the chipmaker to prioritize shipments of processors to X and XAI ahead of Tesla. Now in the past and continuously, Musk has said he can grow Tesla into a major player in artificial intelligence, and the company is spending heavily on NVIDIA's AI processors. But by ordering NVIDIA to let X jump the line ahead of Tesla, he delayed the automaker's receipt of over 500 million in processors by months. And let's start with this, right? Which she says that on first quarter earnings call in April, Elon said on the earnings call that Tesla is going to increase the number of active H100s, NVIDIA's flagship artificial intelligence chip, from 35,000 to 85,000 by the end of this year. He also wrote in a post on X a few days later that Tesla would spend $10 billion this year in combined training and inference and AI. And just right off this paragraph already, right, Hans, there's quite a number of mistakes. Do you want to point it out?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the exact comments were on the call. I haven't gone back and looked at the transcript, but I know that from the shareholder deck, they did not say that they will have 85,000 H100 trips by the end of the year. They said 85,000 H100 equivalents. And so that could mean part of that is Dojo. That could mean that part of that is just further NVIDIA chips. It could be an H200. We have also heard rumors that NVIDIA has begun shipping their first Blackwell chips. And so there's a possibility that there is some deployment of Blackwell to Tesla. This is the graph from the shareholder deck for Q1 that I'm referencing that says H100 equivalent GPUs. And that is where they said that they are targeting that 85,000 number by the end of the year this year.
Right. And then the other big news, a big part here too, which she says that, you know, in the post on X, Tesla would spend $10 billion this year in combined training and inference AI. That's right, except that $10 billion also includes the inference chips that's in the actual cars, right?
Yeah, so that's going to be all of the hardware for computers that are shipping in the vehicles, and there's quite a bit of spend. And it's hard to say exactly how much additional componentry Elon is kind of categorizing inside of that $10 billion number. We don't know how much of that is allocated just to training hardware. And then even if you say how much of that is allocated to just training hardware, I would be pretty surprised if Tesla did not have at least exploratory installations of pretty much all of the major chip makers. So there's probably some Intel chips, there's probably some AMD chips. We know that there's Dojo chips all on top of the NVIDIA chips that Tesla's using to train, just because they need to have a variety of options open to them. They need to have insurance and they need to have experience using all of those different clouds. Whether they're accessing those chips just through cloud providers or whether they have on-prem devices, it's hard to say. But I would be shocked if that whatever the portion of that $10 billion that is dedicated to training was also not further subdivided between NVIDIA, Intel, AMD, and their own in-house Dojo chips.
Okay. This is where she refers to that in her article. She said that in a recent NVIDIA email from late April, Musk's comment on the first quarter Tesla call conflicts with bookings. So somebody in NVIDIA saying, hey, what Elon said on the call conflicts with what we have in bookings. That his April post on X about $10 billion in AI spending also conflicts with bookings and FOI, basically saying that NVIDIA is going, well, we don't have $10 billion worth of purchases from us. The email referenced news about Tesla's ongoing drastic layoffs and warned that headcount reductions could cause further delays with an H100 project at Tesla's Texas Gigafactory. Oh, brother. So obviously you just explained that the $10 billion is not just its equivalents, which includes all sorts of other chips, and it also includes inference. And this headcount reductions, this is, again, obviously that's the top priority for Tesla. So this is just conjecture that they're, oh my God, we're going to have, in fact, it's the opposite that is happening. Anyways, let's continue on. So this is the emails that Lora got by NVIDIA senior staff. So Hans, you do believe that these emails are probably true, right? That they're real, that we're not saying that this is, we don't know yet, but we're not saying that this was false, correct?
Yes, that's the way that it seems to me. It would be probably very difficult for her to write the article that she wrote if the emails themselves were not authentic. But the conjecture that she's making from those emails is it's third-party conjecture that NVIDIA is not Tesla staff, and she is making claims about what is probably going on inside of Tesla based on speculation among people at NVIDIA who do not work inside of Tesla. They do not know the state of the internal projects going on at Tesla. And then so she is speculating on the speculation of people who do not work inside of Tesla and therefore putting out this article, which is fine if you understand that that's what she's doing. We're also speculating on the speculation and offering some alternative theories.
We are. So what she's saying is that correspondence from NVIDIA staffers obtained through the emails indicates that Musk diverted a sizable shipment of AI processors that had been reserved for Tesla to his company X, also went to X. I love that she threw in here Tesla shares slipped as much as 1% in the news Tuesday morning.
Which means not even a full percent, except maybe in some brief spike.
No, but she was hoping, she's trying to say, hey, people should be freaking out. You should make this thing fall. It's just weird that she threw in the Tesla shares thing. So we're going to share some actual, posts from Elon before this to explain a lot of this. But Elon prioritizing X, this is Twitter, H100 GPU cluster deployment at X versus Tesla by redirecting 12,000 of shipped H100 GPUs originally slated for Tesla to X instead. That's what the memo from December said. In exchange, original X orders of 12,000 H100 slated for January and June to be redirected to Tesla. So they've swapped by month. It's hilarious. Yeah. Okay. So let's go through some of the things we do know. So number one, in March, Elon said this: 99% of people have no idea. And improvement will accelerate dramatically now that we are no longer AI training compute constrained. So he's basically talking Tesla's FSD is no longer compute constrained. He said this in March.
Which is only 2 months after those January, however large, we don't know in that 12,000, some were slated for January, some were slated for June, but whatever they got in January apparently was up and running by the middle of March, and they were no longer compute constrained. And we don't know that if they had received those GPUs that shipped in January, if they had received them in December instead of January, if they would have been able to get them online any sooner, because they were probably working on still finishing getting a previous cluster fully set up and wrapped up and put a bow tie on it before they could start the next one. I mean, it's hard to say. Anyone who has ever managed a project knows from personal experience that you set out a timeline of events of the way that you think and hope things should go, and then stuff happens in the real world, and you have to make adjustments on the fly about, oh, we don't actually need the plumber to come in today because the person pouring the concrete's not finished, and so now we need to have the plumber wait till next week to come. And just things like that happen all of the time. And if the argument here is that the XAI, even in the worst case interpretation, that we absolutely could have gotten to a point that we were not compute constrained one whole month earlier, what is the impact of that to shareholders? It doesn't seem like that is a material delay.
Yeah. Listen, she sent this article out today, June 4th, and the shareholder meeting is June 13th. She's trying to insinuate that Elon is no longer interested in Tesla, trying to redirect the resources to X and XAI instead. When, take a look at this data point, which is very cool. In April, this guy, Technology Brother, somebody else showed this chart, and the Technology Brother put this, Zuckerberg image on it, basically showing that Meta is the number one for H100 GPU count, 350,000 H100 GPUs. Okay, last update, April 2024. And if you look at the number 2, number 3, number 4, it looks like Tesla's way down here at 10,000, way down below. Okay, and X and XA don't even show up. This is this state of AI report compute index. Elon replied to this and he said, this is not accurate. Tesla would be the second highest, and X and XAI would be third if measured correctly. This is April. So if she's trying to insinuate that Elon redirected, he's trying to make X and AI, Tesla is already the second highest. This was their goal. They wanted to be no longer compute constrained for the autonomy robotaxi. And then this came out as well just yesterday, 2 days ago. Who's likely to build the first 1 million H100 GPUs equivalent data center? This is from a person named Arvind Srinivas. And he put out this poll. Is it going to be Meta? Is it OpenAI? Is it Google? Is it X? He threw in X here instead of Tesla or even XAI, which is curious. Who's likely to build the first 1 million H100 GPUs? Elon responded to that saying, given the pace of technology improvement, it's not worth sinking 1 gigawatt hour of power into H100s. The XAI 100,000 H100 liquid-cooled training cluster will be online in a few months. So he's saying that in a few months, XAI is going to have their H100s. But the next big step would probably be 300,000 B200s next summer. So again, this kind of shows you, right, that, okay, let's say it's true, he redirected some H100s away from Tesla to X and XAI. But actually, if you've got enough compute, why buy more H100s? You're going to buy the next generation, right, Hans?
Absolutely, because the thing about the next generation, whether he's now receiving shipments of H200s instead of H100s, or if they are already beginning to build out the Blackwell installation, in either of those cases, those are going to be a more efficient training cluster that uses less energy and can get more work done for fewer dollars. And so, like we were saying earlier, this is speculation, but it is just as likely, if not more likely, that what's going on here is that Tesla is Elon is prioritizing the most advanced chips that he can possibly get his hands on for Tesla, and he's allocating the less advanced chips, these H100s, now to X and XAI because those training workloads are not as cutting edge as what he's doing with Tesla. And so he wants to make sure that his largest and public company has access to the highest level of GPUs that they can purchase from NVIDIA at any given time, and that any excess capacity of their older generation chips then get sloughed off to the other companies.
Thanks, Hans. Okay, let's go through Omar. Omar's blog. He's one of the original Tesla bulls. He's been around for a long time fighting Tesla FUD 2018, and he replied and responded to this article. Let's see what he says. So Omar is saying that, first of all, he references Lora Kolodny as a longtime Tesla hater, is out with a story saying Elon redirected NVIDIA chips from Tesla to XAI. I could tell everyone is going to be talking about this one, so let's dig in. The first thing to know about Lora is that she's been working closely with Tesla short sellers like his stalker, Omar's stalker, Aaron Greenspan, for years. I don't know if people know, but there's a guy named Aaron Greenspan. He actually sued Omar and Elon Musk, the same suit. And of course, Elon and Omar won that. And Aaron, as just, again, you can now say, because it's, the suit ended, Aaron was basically saying all sorts of false information, and he was a short seller. She even helped spread accusations that I had, this is Omar, child pornography when Tesla shorts were trying to smear me back in the day. Everything she writes should be taken with a huge grain of salt, and she has often been wrong in the past. This time's no different. So Lora often has done this in the past, where she will take some sort of info, twist it to make it look as bad as possible. Lora's evidence for this story is an internal NVIDIA memo from December 2023, which said Elon prioritizing X H100 GPU cluster deployment at X versus Tesla by redirecting 12,000 of shipping H100 GPUs originally slated for Tesla to X. In exchange, right? We already talked about this. They'll send the 12,000 to Tesla in January and June instead of December. The conclusion she draws from this is that Tesla is being ripped off at the expense of XAI. But it's already June now, so both companies have received the 12,000 GPUs. While she assumes that this is because he hates Tesla and wants to prioritize XAI, this is an assumption that excludes several more benign possibilities. Before we get there, comments on his comments about Lora.
Anyone who's been in the Tesla community for an extended period of time and watches the coverage of Tesla in the mainstream media, you're familiar with the name Lora Kolodny. This is a consistent and repeated pattern where this is just how she treats Tesla, and I think probably does very well in her viewership by being such an aggressive, covering Tesla in such an aggressively negative way, and playing the headline click game, just like pretty much, the entire mainstream media has perfected this method of if it bleeds, it leads, and that's the way that they go. And you can't fault them for trying to play the game that the algorithm incentivizes, but you also just know that, as with anyone, they show you who they are over time, and you can recognize patterns and biases. We all have our own patterns and biases, and that's why it's important to, try and get a variety of news from a variety of sources. And like we said, I think that the source material that she's working off of is authentic source material, and that the opinions that she is citing by NVIDIA staffers are the opinions that they held, but they are just opinions, and she is interpreting the meaning of their opinions in the most negative way possible. And, she has the right to do that, and we have the right to say, I think that your interpretations of opinions are likely incorrect.
Yeah. So Omar continues giving a bunch of other reasons why, if this is true, and we're saying it likely could have been true, more likely that it's true. We're not debating that. But there's reasons why Tesla would have done this. We already mentioned a few earlier in the show. Here's what Omar was saying. He thinks that, well, for example, it's possible that Tesla was still setting up some of the existing H100s they had already received and were not ready to take delivery of more. It's possible that Tesla was under margin pressure, right, and needed to spread out the delivery over a longer time period to minimize the impact on cash flow. Many will rush to say Elon made a decision to harm Tesla. We don't know all the factors that went into this decision, and I'm not going to assume the worst just yet. You have some comments on these two potential possibilities?
Well, we've already talked about the possibility that, they still had H100s that were not completed, or that the setup for those H100 clusters was not completed and they needed to do that. But I also think that the comment that he made about spreading out cash flow, especially when you think about changing deliveries from December to January, that's an entirely different fiscal year. And it could have been that from a financial perspective, they decided they did not want that spend to hit the books in fiscal year 2023, that they would prefer for it to fall in fiscal year 2024. And that is an entirely reasonable possibility. It happens on all types of infrastructure projects across every company, wherever and whenever they are operating, because you have to figure out when do you want to spend money. You have to manage your cash flow. You have to be intelligent about that. You have to think about not only the way that it impacts your balance sheet and your P&L on a monthly or yearly basis, but you also have to think about the way that the narrative about that is perceived by the public, especially with a publicly traded company. And so once again, we don't know if that factored into the decision, but it is just as likely as any of the scenarios that Lora painted. And, we don't have the internal information to prove one way or the other, but the fact that she left that possibility out in her possible interpretations just shows you the leaning of her bias, that, she doesn't know that her interpretations are more accurate than that. But she sure wants you to think that it's something that shareholders should be really, really worried about, because Elon Musk is a bad CEO.
Yeah, she wants to make it look like that it's a bad decision or that he's harming Tesla, when in fact, another possibility, is a really big one, is that, if you got X and you have XAI getting a lot of chips, it's going to benefit Tesla. So one of the big reasons is that another point worth considering is that Tesla will use XAI's language models in products like Optimus the robot and their in-car voice assistant. We already know that this is something we want and need, that when you get into that robo-taxi, you'll be able to talk to it. It'll be able to recognize what you're saying. It'll understand the world, and the vision itself looks like it could have powerful self-driving applications. This is a vision that can recognize the world just like FSD can, but FSD is really trained for the real world of driving. But the Grok would be trained for any kind of vision. It'll be able to understand, what is a fast food restaurant versus one that isn't, as an example. So it's not just XAI versus Tesla. The models being produced by XAI will actually be useful to both companies. So that's a big, good reason. And then this is what we were talking about as well, that it's actually their training compute at Tesla is well ahead of schedule. And in fact, why are they going after the old technology of H100? So you can go to the next version. So Omar says, from what I've heard, Tesla's building out training compute massively and is no longer as compute constrained as they were in the past. They have close to 40,000 H100s and are planning to expand to 85,000 by end of year. In addition, their in-house Dojo supercomputers now in mass production and expanding rapidly. Another potential reason why they may not need the 12,000 H100s at this point if they've got their own, Dojo. From what I've heard from my sources at NVIDIA, this is Omar talking, Tesla has ordered over 100,000 H200s from NVIDIA, and they'll be taking delivery of that the next 12 months. And deliveries have already started. Again, this is something that is most likely what's happening is, why, let's give the H100 one to the X and XAI. Let's go ahead and take the H200 for Tesla. Ahead of the vote on Musk's compensation, Tesla short sellers and their allies like Kolodny will be doing their best to make sure you hate Musk and think that he's ruining the company. The reality is that nobody except Musk could have pushed the company to deliver FSD 12. Sadly, many people will believe the story and repeat it as fact. But I have read Lora's story and see no solid evidence that Tesla is getting enough delivery chips because of XAI. And then this is a private note that was sent to Omar. Somebody who has a friend working for NVIDIA says he got an email saying that Tesla bought 100,000 H200s. This is the next gen. And they started deliveries already and will complete during the next 12 months. So, what's your your comments about the next generation chips.
Well, it's great to hear that Tesla has already begun to take delivery of H200 chips. And I think that, with that piece of information, I think that's one of the pieces of evidence that it's not conclusive, that Elon is prioritizing the most recent chips for Tesla and allowing the older technology to be consumed by X and XAI. But it certainly is more in favor of that being the case than not. And I think it's a piece of evidence that makes that more likely scenario. And so I really like to see that, because that means that Tesla will continue to be able to push the forefront of technology. And then I know there are a number of shareholders who honestly right now do feel like Elon's attention is split, and they are upset that Elon is developing artificial intelligence in other places outside of Tesla. On the one hand, those shareholders have a right to their opinions, but I also disagree with them that everything that is going to be developed in the realm of artificial intelligence belongs inside of Tesla. Tesla is a specific company that has a specific mission to accelerate the advent of sustainable transportation. And there are a lot of things that AI is going to do and going to touch that really don't have anything to do specifically with accelerating the advent of a sustainable energy future. And we do not own Elon Musk. Elon Musk works for Tesla. Hopefully we can make sure he gets paid for working for Tesla. That's a whole separate topic. But he is not required, just because he has a fiduciary duty to be responsible for Tesla as a company. From all intents and purposes, all of the observations that I can make at this point in time indicate to me that Tesla is doing everything in their power that they are capable of doing at this moment in time to reach FSD as quickly as possible, and that they are doing a lot to try and accelerate the Optimus robot project on the heels of the success of FSD as well. And all of that fulfills his fiduciary obligation to Tesla shareholders and does not preclude him, does not keep him from also wanting to push the envelope on artificial intelligence in areas of technology that are outside of the scope and mission of Tesla as a company. And frankly, I am glad that we do have in XAI a competitor to Google and DeepMind, and then Microsoft and OpenAI. I think that competition in that space will make that a much healthier ecosystem, not only for AI safety, but also just for consumer choice and consumer preference. And so I don't have any problems with that. I think, shareholders in any of Elon Musk's companies over the last 5 years, he has been running multiple companies now for almost 2 decades. And this is just part and parcel of the package. If you are investing in one of those companies, you know that he also runs multiple other companies. And if that is a problem for you, then you should consider not investing in an Elon Musk company, because we are not his father. We cannot tell him what he can and cannot do in his time when he's not at Tesla. And that's just the way that the situation exists. And you can opt in or opt out. It's completely voluntary. No one is making these people hold those shares. And if they don't like it, they are free to sell them on the open market and purchase someone else's stock.
But yeah, we already know that the beautiful thing about Tesla's companies is that they all help each other, and we need XAI. So it's kind of funny that, okay, let's say he did transfer some of these chips. Great. XAI needs to grow. We want it to be the number one, most compute. We want Tesla to be number one most compute, the top 1 and 2. And that's what Elon is saying. That is the better news. I would be much more worse as a Tesla shareholder. I'd be much more upset if I heard that Tesla and XAI and X were like far down in compute. But in fact, they're buying more as much as he can. He's getting the H200s. He's buying the B200s. He's going to buy the next versions, and he's building out Dojo too. So Dojo's within Tesla, by the way. So guess who's going to buy that? X and XAI will need to buy Dojo services also sometime in the future. Thank you so much, Hans. Follow him on his YouTube channel. He does deep dives on a lot of these technical FSD, robotaxi, and the chips and so forth. Thank you very much. Appreciate going through this with me today, Hans. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.